Have you tried everything you were told would make the law of attraction work? Daily visualizations, affirmations in front of the mirror, forced gratitude. You believed with all your heart. You did each step as you were told. And yet, nothing has changed. Have you ever felt like the universe is completely deaf to your requests? That was exactly how Hunter Blake felt. From a young age, Hunter was taught to believe that the mind had the power to create realities. He immersed himself in books, courses, lectures, dedicating hours of his life to learning how to manifest what he wanted so much. If someone said there was a new manifestation technique, there he would be, writing down every detail, hoping that this would finally be the magic formula that would change everything. But life seemed to follow another path. At 26, Hunter led a life he barely recognized. He worked a job that didn't inspire him. His relationships seemed to dissolve into thin air, and the dreams he so fervently drew in visualizations remained distant, almost mocking him. Worse than not achieving what he wanted was the suffocating feeling that the harder he tried, the more life seemed to close in on him. Every morning started the same way. Sitting in front of the affirmations notebook, eyes closed, imagining the perfect life. He did everything right, or at least everything he was taught. But the results never came. Hunter was still trying to convince himself. Maybe it's proof of the universe. Maybe I need to trust more. But deep down, in the silence that invaded his nights, he knew something was broken. And what hurt most wasn't just the material failure. It was the feeling of abandonment. It was like screaming into an echoless well. On the outside, he kept his smile, pretended to believe. Inside, I carried a tiredness that I didn't even know how to explain. Each new attempt was like throwing a coin into a bottomless pit. He wanted to believe it. He really did. But it was impossible to ignore that question that was nagging at his mind. What if this is all a lie? And it was at that point, between exhaustion and disbelief, that Hunter did something he had never done before. Not out of anger, not out of desperation, but out of silent exhaustion. He just gave up, and that's when everything started to change. But before I tell you what happened, I want to know, have you ever experienced something similar? Have you ever felt like Hunter, trying everything, believing with all your soul, but seeing life go in another direction? If so, comment below. I understand Hunter. I want to see how many souls are going through this same invisible challenge. And don't leave the video now, because what happened next will open your eyes to something that almost no one tells you about the demonstration. Take advantage and leave your like and subscribe to the channel to follow all the upcoming episodes. They could change the way you see your own reality. Hunter never thought it would get to this point. When he gave up, it was as if something inside him had broken once and for all, without noise, without spectacle, just a silent, almost imperceptible withdrawal. After years of trying to shape his reality through the force of his mind, he no longer had the energy to visualize, to affirm, to be grateful for what he didn't see. It was as if he was slowly sinking into a sea of silence. And this time, not even motivational phrases could rescue him. Over the next few months, Hunter entered a kind of automatic state. He would wake up, go to work, come home, eat something, and sleep. No big expectations, no big uprisings. It was as if he had finally accepted that perhaps his life would be just that. Ordinary, limited, silent. For the first time in a long time, he stopped fighting what he was. And it was in this silent abandonment that rock bottom began to reveal its cruelest face. The money seemed to slip through Hunter's hands without him noticing. Small forgotten bills, unexpected expenses, late rent payments. He tried to maintain his composure, pretend that everything was under control, but inside, a cold fear began to grow. The fear of losing everything. The fear of looking in the mirror and no longer recognizing who he was. Emotionally, Hunter was torn apart. Each piece of bad news seemed to confirm the belief he secretly already carried, that something was deeply wrong with him, that maybe he had never been good enough to manifest great things, that maybe some people were simply born destined to dream, but never achieve. He didn't tell anyone, but during sleepless nights, he felt like disappearing. To erase the pain, to silence the emptiness that seemed to echo louder than his own thoughts. I no longer believed in destiny, in signs, in purpose. Life had become a sequence of gray, soulless days. And what hurt even more was realizing that all the dedication he'd put in over the years, all the gratitude lists, all the visualizations, all the affirmations, seemed to have been for nothing. Hunter began to develop a silent, gnawing guilt that whispered in the back of his mind. It's your fault. You failed. You didn't know how to vibrate the right way. He remembered the promises that so many books and gurus had made. It just feels like it's already real. But how to feel genuine joy when reality was a constant battlefield? How to vibrate sincere gratitude when all he saw was loss, frustration, and emptiness? The dream painting, which previously occupied an entire wall in his room, was removed one night, folded and thrown at the back of the closet. Manifestation diaries were forgotten in a drawer, covered in dust. It was as if every symbol of what he believed in so much was now an open wound, impossible to look at without feeling ashamed of himself. And in this state of bitter surrender, Hunter even stopped asking. He simply existed, as if his heart had been numbed by the weight of so many broken dreams. But what he still didn't know was that, at that exact moment when he felt most lost, something very deep was beginning to move. Something that didn't obey the rules he learned in books. Something that didn't need visualization or repetitive affirmations. Something that came from the breakdown itself. And that was about to change his life in ways he could never have predicted. Hunter couldn't explain exactly what happened that night. There was no big event, no tragic news that blew up your world. It was different. It was silent, as if all the little disappointments, the tiredness, the frustrations accumulated over the years finally boiled over. No warning, no permission. He arrived home after an ordinary day, threw his keys on the table, dropped his backpack on the floor, and stood there, staring into space. The silence in the house seemed heavier than ever. The emptiness inside him was so big that it seemed to occupy every corner of the room. And then, out of nowhere, unable to contain himself, he collapsed. But it wasn't a cry like the others. It wasn't the kind of tear that we dry quickly, trying to pretend that everything is okay. It was a collapse of the soul. Hunter sat on the floor, put his head in his hands, and let the pain come. He let the feeling of failure, of abandonment, of inadequacy take over. He didn't try to resist. He didn't try to think positive. He didn't try to vibrate gratitude. He just felt it. It was as if, for the first time, he admitted to himself what he had been trying to hide for so long, that he was tired, exhausted from trying to control everything, exhausted from pretending to be happy while inside everything was falling apart, exhausted from following techniques, methods, magical formulas, and yet feeling increasingly distant from yourself. On an almost unconscious impulse, Hunter got up and went to the closet. He opened that drawer where he had stuffed, months before, his manifestation journals, his dream boards, his affirmation papers. He took everything, one by one, and, without hesitation, he began to tear. Torn up every wish list, every sentence of affirmation he once wrote with hope. Each image pasted with such care on the murals. Tore everything up. As he did this, he repeated in a low voice, almost a desperate whisper, "I can't take it anymore. I can't try to control what's going to happen anymore." When he was done, Hunter sat back down on the floor, surrounded by the torn pieces of his dreams. He took a deep breath, feeling his chest burning, and then, as if he were making one last silent request to the universe, he whispered, "I just want peace. I don't want anything else. Just peace." That night, he slept like he hadn't slept in years. A heavy, deep, dreamless sleep, as if the weight of 1,000 invisible battles had finally been released. For once, Hunter didn't go to bed trying to create anything, want anything, change anything. It just allowed itself to exist, the way it was. No masks, no expectations. What he didn't know was that act of total surrender, that true abandonment of trying to control everything, had created an invisible rupture in the energy that surrounded him. Something was different now, even if he couldn't yet tell. Something had changed. and it would only be a matter of time before the world around him began to respond. In the days following that silent breakdown, something strange began to happen in Hunter's life. But he didn't realize it right away. There were no fireworks, no grandiose, mystical signs. The first difference was almost imperceptible. The weight in my chest had decreased. Not because he had performed any technique, nor because he had changed his thoughts on purpose. It was different. For once, Hunter just wasn't trying. He wasn't trying to change his vibration, nor was he forcing himself to feel gratitude. He just existed. He breathed. He lived the day as it came. He would wake up, eat his simple breakfast, go to work without making any affirmations on the way. There were no more lists of intentions, no more mantras in the mirror. Nothing. And interestingly, there was a lightness there. Not the fake euphoria he was trying to create before, but a quiet, almost raw tranquility. It was as if, by giving up trying to force life to be different, he had opened himself up, without realizing it, to something much bigger than his conscious desires. And that's when things started to move. On the third day after that meltdown, Hunter received a text from an old friend he hadn't seen in years. Someone who, coincidentally, was setting up a new company and thought of him for a position that hadn't even been advertised yet. It was a vacancy that, in normal times, Hunter would have dreamed of manifesting. But now, he simply read the message without much expectation. He responded naturally. He accepted the invitation to talk, without that old nervousness of, I need to vibrate right for everything to go well. The following week, an old debt, which he had practically given up on receiving, was paid. A value that came as an absolute surprise. Again, Hunter just smiled and accepted, without euphoria, without despair, without that automatic impulse of, I need to thank you 100 times for the universe to continue blessing me. It was as if, by stopping trying to control life with his mind, he had freed up space so that life could truly flow. And it didn't stop there. People began to appear out of nowhere, offering connections, opportunities, possibilities that previously seemed so unattainable. Small coincidences began to happen. A conversation that led to another, a book that appeared at the exact moment, a chance meeting that changed the course of the day. These were not isolated grand events, but rather an invisible thread of events that began to weave a new reality around Hunter, with an ease he had never experienced when he was trying to force everything. And perhaps most incredible of all, this time, Hunter wasn't obsessed with interpreting signs or deciphering hidden messages. He just went with the flow. Received. I thanked him naturally. And it continued. No anxiety. No fear of losing. No suffocating feeling you needed to make it work. The universe, which had previously seemed deaf to his requests, now spoke to him in soft whispers through small daily miracles. And it was impossible not to notice that these miracles were not arising from complex techniques, nor from desperate mental effort. They were being born from the empty space that Hunter created within himself the moment he let go of control. But there was still something bigger to come, something he could never have predicted, something that would show, clearly and almost shockingly, the true power of letting go. Perhaps from the outside, it all seemed coincidental. Perhaps some still tried to rationally explain the small miracles that began to happen in Hunter's life. But for anyone who had already experienced the weight of frustration and the emptiness of resistance, it was impossible not to notice. There was something else in motion. What changed was not Hunter's desire. He always wanted the same things: freedom, fulfillment, love, peace. Desire was never the problem. The difference was that now, he was no longer holding back this desire with hands shaking with fear. He had let go. He had surrendered. And this surrender, silent and without spectacle, was what transformed everything. The law of attraction, despite being widely talked about, is often misunderstood. It's not about repeating nice words. It's not about pasting images on a wall and waiting for miracles to happen. The universe does not respond to what you say with your mouth. It responds to what you vibrate in your deepest heart. And for a long time, Hunter's vibe was one of fear. Fear of not being able to do it. Fear of being wrong. Fear of being forgotten, of being rejected, of being left behind by life. Every visualization, every statement was made with an invisible layer of urgency and desperation. He wanted so much for it to work that he ended up feeling the lack, the absence, the distance from what he wanted. His mind said, I am creating, but the vibrational field screamed, I don't have it. I need it. I'm afraid. And the universe, obediently, just reflected that vibration back to him. When Hunter broke, when he truly gave himself away, no techniques, no control, his vibration changed in ways that he himself couldn't see, but that the universe felt immediately. Fear gave way to acceptance. Urgency gave way to presence. Desperation was replaced by something rare and powerful, the peace of simply being. In this state, Hunter no longer needed to convince the universe of anything. He was already in tune. No effort, no tension, no invisible chains tying your dreams to rigid conditions. Life, which had previously seemed cruel and dull, now moved with him. Not because he was trying to manipulate reality, but because he had finally aligned himself with the truth that had always been there. The universe doesn't deliver when you force it. He delivers when you let him. Hunter's wish was ready from the beginning. All those things he wanted so much already existed, vibrating at a different frequency than the one he insisted on remaining as he tried to control everything. But the attachment was like a wall between him and his own dreams. Each, I need this to be happy, reinforced the absence even more, taking away what he was looking for. When the attachment fell, when Hunter let go of the need to control, the energy could finally flow. And what seemed impossible began to arrive in ways he could never have planned, orchestrated, or predicted. Because at the end of the day, true manifestation isn't about shouting your desires to the universe. It's about becoming the space where those desires can land. And Hunter, by letting go, by giving up control, finally became that space. And now tell me, could it be that, like Hunter, you were also trying to control too much? Could it be that without realizing it, I was vibrating more fear than confidence? If this story brought any new light to your journey, comment below with the word release. I'll love knowing who's ready to let the universe work for you, not against you. Take the opportunity to like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with those who also feel like they are carrying the weight of trying too hard. And get ready, because in the next video, we're going to explore an even deeper story. She just wanted to be a good person, and the universe said, enough. Let's talk about the addiction to pleasing, the annulment of your own desire, and how life, through the law of correspondence and vibration, sometimes needs to overthrow everything so that you can finally truly see yourself. See you there.